Time for example 1. All right. So we want to simplify this fraction and also write our restrictions. All right, so the first thing we want to do is let's focus in on this first fraction right here and look at the numerator. So I see that my numerator is x squared minus 16. That's a difference of squares. So that numerator can actually be factored into x minus 4 and x plus 4. And my denominator, I'm going to keep that as is for right now. Let's move on to the second fraction. Now remember, the reason we're factoring is so that we can see what similarities we have in the numerator and denominator so that we can cancel them out. Okay, so in the numerator, I see that I've got this quadratic. Now to factor, we're looking for two numbers that add to positive 1 and multiply to negative 90. And the two factors that would satisfy both of those conditions are going to be x plus 10 and x minus 9. Alrighty, and then let's focus now on our denominator. So for our denominator, again, it's another quadratic, so we're looking for two numbers that add to 14 and multiply to 40, and the two numbers that would satisfy that condition are positive 10 and 4. So I'm going to have x plus 10 and x plus 4. All right, so now that I've factored everything out, I want to see what I can start canceling. Now remember, I can only cancel if I have the same thing in the numerator and in the denominator. So I notice that I've got an x plus 4 in my numerator and an x plus 4 in my denominator, so those can cancel out. I also see that I have an x plus 10 in my numerator here and an x plus 10 in my denominator here, so I can cancel that out. It's okay that they're in the same fraction. Okay, let's clean this up a little bit. So I'm going to write x minus 4 over 9 minus x times x minus 9. And since I've reduced everything in my denominator for that second fraction, this is going to be all over 1. Okay, so this is what I've got left. Now, I see that this looks very similar to this, but it's not quite the same. However, I can manipulate this second factor down here to look like x minus 9. To do that, I'm going to factor a negative 1 out of that expression. So copy that numerator again. So when I do that, when I factor out a negative 1, I end up with an expression that looks like this in my denominator of that first fraction, all over 1. Okay, now since I've done that, I've got an x minus 9 in my numerator and an x minus 9 in my denominator, so I can cancel that out. Let's clean this up one more time. X minus 4 all over negative 1 times 1 is just negative 1. So here it is simplified, and I can actually rewrite this expression as negative 1 times x minus 4. And then if we want to, we could even distribute that negative 1 in, and we would be left with negative x plus 4. So here is our completely simplified expression when we multiply those two original fractions that we were given. Okay, the next thing we need to do is find the restrictions. So remember, our restrictions, we have to list out the restrictions that would be the numbers that can't be, that would make this denominator be 0. So for example, our domain would be all x such that x could never equal 9, because if I put 9 into x over here in for all x's, I'm going to end up with a 0 right here in the denominator, and that can't happen. X can also never equal negative 10, because when I substitute negative 10 in for x, I would end up with a 0 right here. And also, x can never equal negative 4. All right, let's go ahead and try example 2.